website, so please, if there are any issues, just let me know, and of course we won't. So hopefully we are recording. Yes, we are. That's fine. Sorry if I look distracted. I'm just looking to help let other people in. I'm multitasking and hopefully I can do that all right. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our series of virtual career chats. This morning is our 5th project management one, and I'm delighted to have Arcadis and Lysander here with us this morning, and they're going to share, they're both our mentors, and they're going to share their journeys and a day in the life of. If I can ask, if you're not a speaker, just to switch your camera off and put yourself on mute, that'd be brilliant. There'll be an opportunity to switch back on at the end in the Q&A. That's fantastic. So that's enough from me. I'm going to just say, sit back and enjoy, and I give you our CEO. Over to you, Angela.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual career chat with me, Angela Forbes. It's a pleasure to welcome you all back from the glorious bank holiday weekend and from half term. I hope there was nothing but love and harmony as we all spent even more time with those that we loved. The one thing that many households have benefited from this year is the absence of the typical exam period, so our 4th, 5th and 6th year students. And I know that can add an incredible stress to all concerned, and I certainly remember it. So good luck to them all as the teachers' assessments come in August. I hope you are safe and well and looking after one another and yourself. And remember, you can always pick the phone up to us. We are here to support you. We care, and you have our commitment that we will always answer and we will always listen. Okay, so this morning, our virtual career chat is centred around project management. So this is the fundamental and critical skill set which many of our armed forces personnel possess, but sits at the heart of our industry. So an incredibly popular career choice, and one where many roles do exist. So our incredible speakers today are Ben Hawkins from Arcadis and Michael Dryden from Lysander. So without further ado, we will crack on with our speakers, and I'll pass over to Ben. Hi, Ben, and we'll turn our screens off.
Thank you, Angela. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Ben Hawkins. I'm a director at Arcadis. I was promoted last Friday, so it's relatively recent, and it's the first probably time I've said that out loud to lots of people. And I'm here to talk to you about project management in Arcadis, a bit about myself, a bit about my journey, and a bit about how I got to where I got to. And I'd be delighted to take questions at the end. And equally, if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I know it's one of those awkward things, please do. It'd be great if you could send a personalised note to say, I listened to you speaking with Bill Force, and I'd like to connect to pick your brains about something. That'd be great. And that just kind of keeps me on track as to who's who. So what I'm going to cover over the next sort of 15 minutes or so is I'm going to talk a bit about Arcadis, a bit about how I decided on what I was going to do when I left, a bit about the values and cultural differences of particularly Arcadis and perhaps the construction industry and project management role between the military and I was in the army, so I'm going to speak from a very army-centric perspective. The importance of a personal brand, and then economy of effort versus concentration of force. That's really important to me as a consultant, and you'll see why as we get through, I'd hope. So there we go. Look, first, it's a brand new slide deck. So there's the first typo in there. That's great news. So intro to Arcadis. So we're the leading design and natural built asset company, and we do sort of project management, program management, construction management, cost management, all those kind of good things. And we've got all of these areas, and I'll make sure these slides are available for you afterwards, around roles. So there's lots of different areas and lots of different disciplines we can do. But the point about this is I've considered this as being specialists and generalists, and we're talking specifically about project management here. So it's unlikely on the left-hand side that you would come to us if you had no experience in any of that stuff before. So civil engineering, structural engineering. You know, I've got a degree in civil engineering, and I still don't consider myself as a civil engineer within this business because we've got some real deep specialists. was actually on the right hand side, the more generalist things. So if you're considering project management as a suite of other things, there's some great stuff in there that we do around investment and finance, business transformation, digital innovation, project and program management, all those kind of things. So the bit on the left hand side of each of the columns is the sort of the family, and the right hand side is the specialization. We do break out project and program management to be discrete in our business, and I can pick up on that in questions if you'd like. But I am a level 10 director and a program director. I'm in the project and program management family of a part of the business, and kind of understanding what that all means is stuff that you will probably spend a bit of time doing as you move into your next phase of your career outside of the military. So we're a global organisation, and in the UK and in Ireland, we've got 3,700 employees. We've got a revenue of 504 million per annum, and this was correct as of last year, so it's probably gone up a bit because the first parts of lockdown slowed us down a bit as a business, and now it appears that we are doing reasonably well on the back of a positive bounce for the construction industry. We've got 26 offices, and we're well represented across the UK and across Ireland. And my home base is Bristol. I live in Bristol. I settled here after my career in the military finished when I was posted to Abbey Wood. So I've used to come into the office every day prior to COVID. I'm in the office today. I come in about once a week now, and can get here by rail, and it's great to do that. So how did I decide on the role in the industry during resettlement? So I used sort of three main considerations. Family and location. I was really lucky. I'd already settled in Bristol with family here. So I decided I could do most things in the West Country. Bristol's big enough. It's got lots of engineering type stuff. It's got lots of project type stuff. It's got lots of defence type stuff. So that kind of worked out really quite well for me, I thought. It's connected enough to be able to commute as well. So getting into London, you can do in about 2 hours from Temple Meads. And actually my local station just down the road does have the fast trains that go all the way through. So that's pretty good. So it's big enough so I don't need to commute, but it is also pretty well connected. And then in terms of myself, construction is something that I always wanted to do. Project and program management seemed to be a reasonable fit because I'd been doing a bit of that stuff in the military, although it doesn't really have the same sort of label. But once you do anything that's unique and you control the resource, you control the delivery, then actually you're effectively a project manager, whether you have a label or not. And we can pick up on kind of qualifications that I gained throughout my career as we go, if you'd like. In the nicest possible way, I felt that working in the defence industry could be a really good fallback. So having the DE&S up the road from me was an opportunity, and I'd spent 3 years there, so I knew a bit about the sort of hard edge around requirements and about the actual procurement, and I also knew a bit about running teams as a chief of staff of one of the delivery teams. So, you know, I knew I had skills and experiences that I could sell back to defence if I needed to. And then in my last couple of years, I became a chartered engineer. Having read civil engineering at university, I then entered the bomb squad and did nothing at all to do with civil engineering or construction pretty much for 17 years. But as I was leaving, I recognised there was an opportunity to get chartered as a systems engineer, and so did that through the Institute of Engineering and Technology. Going through those competencies was really useful for me to recognise those things that were seen by others and employees as they took me on. So it made me realise all of the core competencies and skills. So you may not be an engineer, but looking at things like competence frameworks and project management competence frameworks could really help you to identify the skills that you've got when you leave defence, so you can sell those skills on to an employer and work out what's valuable to them. So because we were already settled in the West Country, that sort of one stage of the stool, or one leg of the stool, still for me. Interestingly, I stated that I wanted to work in the Southwest, and the business was fantastic when I joined Arcadis. I said, yeah, we'll keep you in the Southwest. There'll be no messing around and travelling loads and loads. But actually, your whole game raises when you leave defence, and you don't really understand what all this stuff means. So I ended up servicing a client 3.5 hours down the road in Truro, not every day, but at least once a month, if not once a fortnight, going down there. And then by the time you sort of overlay, you do your IPE, so your intelligence preparation environment, you realise you can be in sort of Glasgow by plane in 3.5 hours. So consultancy is really different to what you think of in defence, and actually our business doesn't require people to have nights out of bed if they don't want them. So that was interesting. So just be prepared for little sort of changes in the way that you perceive things, and the way and ask those kind of questions. It wasn't an issue. It was fantastic. It was a great opportunity to work with a client who needed our help, and to sort of improve quality of life down in the southwest. So it was great, and what a great place to work in Truro. Less good in the summer when you're sat on the A30 for a long time getting down there. So the values and cultural differences. So in Arcadis, we really are a values-driven culture, and you can see the values there around the outside of the ring, and the inner circle is our behaviours, and a bit of narrative from some of our internal communications about those values and the behaviours. And we really do believe this stuff. We really focus on the client success. That's not the client's always right. It's helping them to succeed. We are a collaborative organisation, and unlike the sort of ruthless pyramids that we're used to in the military, there's none of that sort of backstabbing to climb up the knife behaviour that you may experience in the military. We really do put our people first, and there's a number of times I've been called out for working late, and there's a number of times I've called people out for working late, and we just keep an eye out for each other, and we really do value our people. We pride ourselves on being an employer with integrity, so that we say the right things at the right time, and when nobody's looking, we still do the right things all the time. And we have a great flat culture where we can call each other out and check in with each other and make sure we're all doing the right things. And then finally, sustainability. It's had a huge push recently, particularly with COVID and the reduction in rates of pollution. But we're, as a Dutch company, we pride ourselves on bringing sustainability to the fore. So we think about wind, we think about mitigating the effects of concrete. We are studying, and I have studied about net zero carbon and how we can drive those emissions down to zero, and look at making net zero buildings and negative carbon buildings, which is a real challenge, and it's knotty and it's interesting, and it's the sort of values that we stand by that gives us those challenges, which is great. So the importance of establishing a personal brand, there you go, that's the second typo, section number. So it's sort of then and now, really. So when I turned up, I was just the soldier, and what people think about that is up to them. It's really interesting, and everybody's been hugely positive about the fact that I'd done army stuff. They had no idea what it meant. I told them I'd been a major, and they went brilliant. If I told them I'd been a lance corporal, they'd have said brilliant. It doesn't matter, and that openness and honesty on behalf of the people I work with was absolutely fantastic, and they recognised the value of my experiences. They put no value to my rank, and that's something I'm sure you'll experience where you go. Part of the reason I chose Arcadis was because there weren't lots and lots of military folk here, so I could sort of forge my own way and get on with my own sort of business. And so what I'm known for now is lots of things around digital, lots of planning, lots of thinking, lots of turning around struggling and challenged programs and improving performance. I put a little alarm clock on there because I regularly have partners turn up on calls, and if they're not 5 minutes early, they apologise, because I'm a bit of a stickler for time, and getting in amongst lots of things around that, and it's great fun. And I was really worried in lots of respects about in the early days about. I spoke to somebody about the way that they were dressed, because the shirt was hanging out, their shoes weren't polished, and they had this real crisis of confidence. I'm not a sergeant major, I've never been a sergeant major, but actually this person was due to see a client and was poorly turned out, and I had to sort of rely on my integrity to override this. Oh, I don't want to be this soldier, and say, look, can I have a chat with you, please? I think you're seeing a client, you need to go and sort yourself out. Those little rumours and things get around, and people really raise their game around you, and it's great. And you see people behave positively because it's a form of leadership that lots of my colleagues aren't used to. Oh, they certainly are now. And you don't bark at people as you might have done in the military, or say Sergeant Major, sort that out. But you do have a quiet word, and people are really thankful actually for that feedback. It's astonishing. And about your personal brand. When you've established it, when you're known for what you are and what you do, not what you were. So I'd be really surprised probably up to definitely the first year I was that guy who was a soldier who's pretty good at getting stuff done. And then it was that guy who's good at getting stuff done. I think he was a soldier. Now it's the digital leader. Now it's the director. It's this, that, and the other. So the guy who turned around the Honeywell account, those kind of things. And that's interesting. And you sort of have that point of inflection that you get to when you realise that you're more than just what you were. So economy of effort versus concentration of force. When to say no and how to stay on track. So having a few confidants in the business is really important. It can help you stay on track. Don't be afraid to assert yourself early if something isn't working out. So consultancy, and I'm definitely in the consultancy world. And for those of you who may not necessarily know what that is, a client is buying something that's going to be built. The consultant advises that client on what they should do and manages the contractor who goes off and brings the workforce and actually does it. So I'm sort of managing the contractor in some respects, although the contractor does lots of it himself, holding them to account, making sure the client's getting what they need and what they've paid for. So I'm much more office-based perhaps than some of the site roles, and I've done a fair bit of time on site, but it suits me personally. But it can be exceptionally demanding. You have to get the balance of homework and yourself, and you don't have the same level of support network that you might have in the mess, in the wardroom, those kind of things, because it's just different. Work stops at 5:30 and most people go home and don't have anything to do with each other in their own time. So it would be really easy to burn out, and I think I burned hot, didn't burn out, and that's where the culture was really helpful, and people recognised that once I'd got beyond that upskilling extra sort of 20-30% you have to put in to try and catch up with everybody, then people sort of called me out, and it was really helpful to do that. And our culture is really supportive, as I've said, and working in an agile way. Currently Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm starting work at 6:30. I'm finishing at 2:30 in the afternoon and going to pick the kids up from school. That's absolutely fantastic, and it works well with my home life. And then, saying no. I was asked about something and said, I was asked to go to a function and said, well, what if I can't make it? And they said, well, that's all right. Don't worry about it. And that was absolutely revelatory to me, the fact that I could say no, because you can't really say no in the military. And nobody then says, oh, do you remember you said no to going to that function? I actually did go into the function in the end, and it was pretty good, so I'm glad I went. But it's just a cultural difference that's interesting for you. So the sort of final thing I'm going to say is there was an opportunity for a military network in Arcadis when I joined. I was recruited by a person who had been a Royal Engineer, and he came and found me through a headhunter and wanted me because I was a sapper officer, because I'd been a military assistant to a 2-star general, so broadly I'm reasonably competent at certain things, and because I'd been in the bomb squad, and therefore I could solve whatever problems needed to get solved, and that's kind of how it works. The more I got my sort of understanding of the organisation, the more I recognised that actually there were a few veterans around, and so I used the opportunity to start Arcadis Force, which is for serving personnel, veterans and their families. So I absolutely include our active reserves, and we've just had a couple of reserves recover from Op Rescript, the military support to the COVID crisis. We've got ex-regulars like me who are non-active reserves, as you can tell by the hair. And then we've got those who've only ever been in the reserve. We've also got Cadet Force instructors, Cadet Force adult volunteers, and we've got wives, husbands, partners of serving personnel. And to me, the backbone of lots of the military life and the value comes from those families as well. So I absolutely want it to be inclusive. By happy coincidence, but slightly by design, we were then able to use this network in a bid, and it supported us winning work with the Defence Infrastructure Organisation and helping them to build net zero carbon service family accommodation and single family accommodation, single soldier accommodation. And it's been used in a bid, and it's being recognised. And as we roll in this year towards Armed Forces Day, the work and the networking and the support that comes from Arcadis Force is coming to the fore. We've signed the Armed Forces Covenant. We've received the Bronze Employer Recognition Scheme Award. We've applied for the Silver, and I'm awaiting to be told if we've been successful. I'm hoping that'll be the next week. So the Armed Forces is definitely coming up, and the value that those in the Armed Forces can bring to the construction industry and to Arcadis is much more at the fore. So that's pretty much it for me. We don't have a specific military recruiting drive at the moment. We spotted one from one of our competitors, and that's in with our head of talent at the moment. But because I head up Arcadis Force, if you are interested in our vacancies, I'd urge you to have a look on our website and see what we've got, and then drop me a line, and I may be able to introduce you and get you to the right kind of people. Because there is a bit of wordsmithing and a bit of crafting that can go to make sure a military CV lands with a totally civilian employer. And you know, what I've found through the connections I've made with Caroline is Buildforce is a fantastic place to do that and to help. And if it's something Arcadis specific, I'd be delighted to help you in that respect. Equally, you know, please, and I'm just remembering what Caroline told me, please go through Caroline and she'll be happy to connect you, because it's really important that we understand the value that Buildforce is adding to our community. And that is all I have to say, and I look forward to seeing the next presentation and taking your questions as and when they come.
Ben, that was fantastic. You were selling the dream for project management. Well done, you. Okay, and can I ask Michael Dryden if he can join us? Thank you, Ben.
Yes, thanks, Angela. Thanks, Ben. First off, I'd just like to apologise. I'm having a little trouble with my camera today. I look very dark. I look like I'm on Crime Watch or something like that. But not to worry, I'll bring up my presentation shortly. Just the first thing I want to say to everybody is, you know, don't worry. You've come from a fantastic background with you know, a lot of great and transferable soft skills. I know a lot of the leaving dates for you guys will be creeping up, and you know, I left the Royal Engineers just over a year ago, and I understand the feeling. You know, people have mortgages to pay. You know, potentially a lot of you would have been in you know, fixed employment for 20 plus years, and that date starts creeping up, and you may feel that, you know, you're at that stage where it's too early to start applying for jobs because you may be sort of 6+ months out. But don't worry, you know, the veteran community out there is fantastic. You know, project management, there's a lot of companies who recognise the skills you have, and you know, you will find employment, particularly now that you've taken the step to get involved with Buildforce, because their mentor support is fantastic. So don't worry, and I'll start my presentation. Okay, can someone just confirm that you can see my screen there?
Yeah, we can see it, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, so you military guys love your scope. So what I'm going to cover, following on from Ben, is a little bit from transferring from the military to project management role. I'll give you a quick introduction to Lysander and what we are all about, and then I'll sort of break it down at the sort of lowest level. I'll offer what, by way of a little resettlement advice that I can give. We'll look at the sort of the types of project management, the big choice that each and every one of you will have to make, and then we'll look at a day in the life of a project manager on the consultancy side. So a little bit about me and my background, just so you know who I am and what I'm talking about. So I did 15.5 years in the Royal Engineers. Started off as a sapper, with my trade being a bricklayer and concreter. Quickly move up to doing a lot of construction supervision, in and amongst my time of being a sort of soldier and combat engineer. I then went on as a junior NCO, did a couple of tours of Afghanistan, a lot of construction work out there. I did Op Talisman, which is the sort of route search and clearance for those that don't know. And then as a corporal, I was a combat engineer and instructor. So, you know, we taught sort of demolitions, bridge building, water supply, all sorts like that. Toward the back end of my career, then I completed as a clerk of works construction. So just for those that don't understand what that is, the Royal Engineers often takes soldiers through a sort of fairly rigorous recruitment process. You know, they like to say to pick out the best amongst us, and they then train you up for a couple of years to lead construction projects. So that's design management, quality management, project management, health and safety, and all that good stuff. So some of the qualifications I already left with, we had a foundation degree in construction management. I'd already done my APM PMQ, that's the Associate Project Management qualification. I already had my CSCS card and my site management safety training scheme. So these are all courses which people, you know, potentially look at for doing during their resettlement period. I already had that through my time in the Royal Engineers. Experience-wise, the main sort of construction experience I had at the back end of my career is I completed 2 tours of South Sudan. So the images I've got there, that image at the top is part of the hospital that we done a design and build for. The map shows Malakal. If you can see my cursor, the large white area around there shows sort of 40,000 displaced personnel inside what is the largest sort of United Nations camp. So within that area, I'd done my first tour and then volunteered and went back with a different regiment a year later. So as I mentioned, I'd done the design and build for a hospital there. I'd done a lot of surface water drainage. They get a lot of heavy rainfall out there. So a lot of culvert construction, road construction. We did design for a water pipeline, all sorts, a lot of sort of infrastructure projects. Upon leaving the military, then I moved into project management consultancy with a company called Lysander. So that's my sort of history. That's who I was then, and this is who I am now. So working with Lysander, we do we're a multidisciplinary constructionary company. We work across industrial, commercial, high-end residential, records management, and that sort of good stuff. My main client now, a company called Amazon, you've probably heard of them. I do a lot of work for them. They are, in fact, all my projects at the moment are Amazon. So that ranges from sort of basically big shed construction to change management projects, mezzanines, all sorts. But we'll touch upon that later. So it's just some of the services we have within Lysander. We have a fairly large project management team. We also do cost management. I share my office with a couple of quantity surveyors. We do building surveying, development advice, and fund monitoring. So you can just see some of the images of some of the sort of projects Lysander are involved in. This top image in particular, sort of large warehouse construction, is the side of the business I mostly work with. So just our presence then. At the moment, we have 3 offices in the UK: Godalming in Surrey, London, and the office I'm from, Newcastle. We are also looking at opening up another office in the Midlands fairly shortly. We have a large presence in Germany. They've really taken off over the last couple of years. They just keep sort of doubling in size every few months, it seems. I'm also pushing into the rest of Europe right now. Currently, they're recruiting for an opportunity in Indonesia, so it is sort of pushing globally. So what I really want to do, following on from Ben's presentation, is break it down to the nitty-gritty and just see what good advice I received when I was leaving the forces and sort of pass that on to you. So looking at your resettlement, guys, if you're not aware, the Defence Academy is a fantastic place to start. I've put the link up there on the presentation, and I'll make sure Caroline and Angela get a copy of this for those that want to get a hold of those links. So the Defence Academy holds various project management courses, including the APM PMQ, which I just talked about. There's all sorts of other courses that they do, sort of project management tools and techniques. There's introductions to procurement, and the list is nigh on endless, but that's all a free resource to people within the military, so it's definitely worth a look. Getting yourself on that website. Networking and job hunting, LinkedIn, my advice would just be expand your network. It's very easily done. If you're looking for project management roles in, let's say, Manchester, just go on LinkedIn, search project manager, Manchester. What you'll get is a huge list of people. Start adding your connections. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're wanting to be a project manager, you will then, your news feed will then just start getting filled up with posts from project managers and other sort of professional people within the area that you're interested in. If your network only goes as far as your sort of friends and family, then you really need to expand that really. I've mentioned sort of CV library down there. That's just one of the apps you can download, and you'll get yourself sort of daily job notifications and things like that in your area. You can upload your CVs to a lot of these websites, a lot of these apps, and then people will actually poach you as well as you trying to sort of hunt for jobs yourself. But the biggest advice I can give to everyone really is make sure you tailor your CV. See what skills they're asking for within those job applications. Look at what skills on that list you have and make sure you get them into your CV. For every CV you send to a company should be tailored to that job role that they're asking for. And then that's the sort of biggest piece of advice I can give everyone. Another one would be to recognize your knowledge gaps. I mean, when I left the military, I knew I didn't have a lot of commercial experience. I went and done the Chartered Institute Building Chartered Membership Program. A lot of that was focused on, commercial aspects, program management, all that sort of thing. So it really helped us sort of hone my skills, pick up on different things like contracts and things which I might not have been too familiar with. I've done a lot of my projects overseas, as I mentioned, sort of South Sudan earlier. So just notice where you've got those skills gaps and really hone in on them. With regard to construction contracts, there's a lot of webinars on YouTube. There's actually sort of courses you can pay for and do, but YouTube has a great selection of webinars. The most common being the JCT and the NEC forms of contract, and it's definitely worth having at least a basic understanding of those contracts. Health and safety wise, research the duties under the CDM regulations. This is something you need to be familiar with. That the 5 key duty holders. It comes up on projects a lot, particularly when you're managing sort of principal designers. You're taking on client duties potentially, or if you're on the delivery side, you've got the duties of the principal contractor. So it's definitely a sort of piece of knowledge that you need to acquire if you don't have it already, because it is common and it comes up sort of daily. The RIBA project stages, particularly on the client side of project management, make sure you develop your understanding. It gets referenced a lot in projects, and just understand what each stage means. And basically, if you're having conversations with architects in particular, you'll know what they're talking about. Now, another great resettlement piece is Buildforce, and congratulations, everyone has taken that first step. On the mentoring side, they provide great industry guidance. They have a lot of connections. They can get you involved on work placements. When I was leaving the military just over a year ago, they set me up for a few weeks on site, which was great. My advice there would just be organise as many as you can. You can use your termination leave to book in work placements. Alternatively, you can put in your own sort of annual leave dates, and then just make sure you arrange the insurance appropriately. And then finally, your entitlements. You've got your GSP 534, your enhanced learning credits, your standard learning credits. Make sure you use these. I'll not focus too heavily on them, because you get a lot of that from your workshops. But yeah, use them. Recognize what qualifications you need to do the job roles, and go get them. Go get them. So this is the big question that everyone is going to have to answer for themselves, really. What type of project manager do you want to be? The 2 key ones for the construction industry is to be, you've got your site, your delivery based project managers. They're going to be on site daily, dealing with the ins and outs of all the construction sort of construction problems that arise, dealing with the subcontractors, health and safety, arranging all the visits, arranging materials, making sure everything's built and done correctly. So if that's what interests you, typical qualifications. I mean, everyone's going to need a CSCS card. Big piece of advice there. You very rarely get on any site without a CSCS card. You'll also need your SMSTS. That's your Site Management Safety Training Scheme. It's a week-long health and safety course. All site managers will hold this qualification, along with what is usually an HND or higher. In quals likely to be sort of construction management, construction project management. The site management specific ones, something like that. NVQs are a popular route for site-based project managers. A lot of companies sort of take people on as trainee site managers, progress them to assistant site managers, and then finally give them their own site. Professional body wise, most delivery based project managers either have or are working towards the Chartered Construction Manager Award, that being full membership of CIOB. Now I've put another link down there, transition programs. So a lot of well, house builders in particular, a lot of companies, Barratt in this case, have sort of armed forces transition programs. So, you know, you go through a couple of interviews, they will pick you up, start you as a trainee site manager, normally within sort of 12 months, and they'll upskill you to an assistant site manager, all while taking you through an NVQ. And then finally, the end goal being that you become a full site manager yourself. Other useful courses then, first aid at work, fire marshal and scaffold inspection. These are all, you know, pretty mandatory qualifications really. You know, on a construction site, based on, you know, the numbers of people working there at the time, you will likely have at least a couple of people who are first aid at work. So it's normally the site manager and the assistant site manager, just because companies know that they're going to be on site all the time. Same with the fire marshal and the scaffold inspection. But, you know, some other courses that will certainly give you an edge. You've got the temporary works coordinator, further health and safety qualifications like your IOSH managing safely. You know, you can do one of those courses. You can do the IOSH managing safely through your standard learning credits, typically a 3-day course. And then finally, you've got your more sort of rigorous health and safety qualifications such as NEBOSH construction, clearly being the obvious choice. So that's the sort of site-based. Onto the, you know, the consultancy or client-facing, as it's often referred to. Qualifications you're looking for there, you'll need the, you know, your CSCS card again. APM PMQ is quite a common one, but it's usually a degree. Most people come in as graduates, but, you know, not always. Other useful courses then, you've got the likes of, you know, your management of risk and value management. Again, you've got NEBOSH construction and the likes. Professional body wise, on the consultant side, most typically it's APM and RICS, but plenty of others have the likes of, you know, CIOB, chartered engineers, etc. So what I've done on this slide here, to take you through a day in the life of a project management on the consultancy side, I've taken a look at the key responsibilities, just keeping it simple to break it down for you. And what I've done is I've pulled up the projects that I am involved with sort of right here and now today. So, you know, key responsibilities really, you know, you're going to pick up a project from receiving the client brief, and you're going to take it all the way through the project life cycle. You know, so you're involved with every aspect. You know, you'll often pull together the project management team. So that's the architects, the structural engineers. You'll have planning consultants, M&E consultants, and then, you know, as you go out to tender, you'll pick up the general contractor. And you'll chair those project meetings. You know, as a project manager, you know, if you picture a sort of, you know, a working engine, you're the big cog in the middle. You know, you're not necessarily providing a service such as designs and things like that, but everything moves through you. You know, everybody sort of reports into you, and, you know, you have an eye on sort of everything that's going on within a project, and ultimately you're responsible for that project success and managing the program. So what I've got here is a snapshot of a feasibility report I've done. So this, I've been involved in a number of what we call sort of change management projects. So I've got a warehouse here. They're looking at changing the sort of gatehouse layout. I went down, looked at the area, decided on a few options of how, you know, we can improve the yard flow and things like that. Put together a, you know, hopefully a professional looking report, and then submitted that to the client. So, you know, looking at soft skills wise, any, you know, IT competencies, things like that will certainly set you in good stead. And the next project I've got here is a large EV van project in Norwich. So what the client is doing here is for their sort of van fleet for deliveries. We have sort of 300 odd spaces where they'll be able to charge electric vans. So huge power input to that. The image I've showed you is from the landscape and design, and, you know, we take that project from, like I said, from very early stages. And you as a project manager, you deal with all sorts of problems that you don't anticipate. You know, every project's different. So this project in particular, being, you know, a van park, on our planning application, they insisted on having little holes in for sort of badgers and hedgehogs and things like that to be able to crawl through. You know, we argued the fact that, you know, the last place we want little mammals is on a busy car park, but you know, these are some of the issues you have to deal with as a project manager, unfortunately. The next one there, you know, I've showed you a building plan there. This is a big mezzanine project for robotics. So we're talking, you know, an entire warehouse fitted with a mezzanine. So a lot of concrete works there, inch perfect for, you know, robots to be able to move around on. So this is about as technical as it gets. We're looking at for this one, integrated delivery plans, 3D models, all that sort of stuff. Now, the final image I've got there just shows the sort of concrete being put in one of our larger sort of warehouse projects. So again, just something I'm involved in. I'm doing a large renovation of a you know, a large warehouse at the moment. So some of the key benefits then of, you know, working in project management consultancy. It's perfectly suited to ex-military. You know, all those soft skills you have. The amount of times every single one of you would have no doubt been given a project. You know, this is yours to manage. Get on with it, and that is the reality of military life. You know, every single person who's watching this now will be, you know, fantastic problem solvers. They'll have leadership skills. They'll have great communication skills because, you know, you dropped in that from a very early level in your career. You know, particularly, you know, as military, we are probably the only people, bar a few, who are physically trained in leadership and management. You know, there's not a lot of people out there in civilian street who can say that. So whether that's from, you know, being a junior NCO, from your early days in Sandhurst, you know, and everything that's equivalent, you know, you've had that training, you've had that skill set, and you're perfect for this type of role. As a consultant, then you will manage your own time, and as Ben was mentioning, it's very important to get that work-life balance. One of the things that appealed to me most about coming into the consultancy side of things is location. You know, I don't have to sort of travel around too often. You know, if you're on the delivery side and your site is down south and then the next one's up north, you know, guess what? You're traveling there and you're staying in hotels. When you're in consultancy, you know, a lot of the time you can choose between working in the office, working at home, and you know, when you get yourself on site. So you have a lot more freedom. That's not saying you don't have to travel. You certainly do. But it's typically not for months on end. You know, it might be a sort of couple of nights here and there. You get a great variety of projects. You know, no 2 days the same. Location wise, I've mentioned it's a lot easier for sort of settling down in one place. You know, Ben was talking about being able to pick his kids up. You know, that was a huge thing for me after 15.5 years in the Royal Engineers. You know, I get to drop my kids off at school, pick them up every now and then. It's fantastic. And I've put professional working environment down there. When you're a site-based role, you're having to deal with all sorts of people, all sorts of subcontractors with all sorts of problems. As a consultant, you're just dealing with the main contractor when you're on site. So, you know, it's a much more professional working environment. You know, people aren't showing up to work drunk in this type of job. And finally, I've put salary. So the little snip there, which everyone's eyes are probably widening, focusing into. Typically on the consultancy side, the pay is a little bit higher. Now, I've taken that snip from the APM pay survey, which is done every year. I've put the link down there. It's worth taking a look at. It'll help you gauge where your salary, you know, basically gauge if your salary expectations are where they should be. And yeah, you can see the sort of average salary by working arrangement there. And on the consultancy side, we typically do a little bit better. So I think we're ready to open up to Q&A. So I'll hand back to Angela and Caroline. Thank you.
Michael, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. I loved your start of Don't Worry. So it's very welcoming. If I could ask Ben to turn his camera on as well, hopefully that echo's gone. I just heard it there. Hi, Ben. Thank you. Thank you to both of you. I thought that was absolutely incredible. The detail and the content was fantastic. So a credit to both of you. And you weren't even prompted. You came up with it all yourselves. Thank you for that. Again, just to everybody that's dialed in, just please feel free to ask questions. Just raise your hand or type them in the box. I'll kick off with a few meantime. In fact, a question for Ben, which I thought was absolutely fascinating that you mentioned it. You mentioned the reason that you selected Arcadis was because there weren't any other ex-military there. So did you see that transition as a new chapter, a new and improved Ben? And second to that, you then started the Arcadis Force Group. And did you feel that you just needed that break from the armed forces before you were able to get back into it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I'd been an absolute military brat my whole life. So not a pad brat, but went to a school that had borders and lots of cadets and stuff. So as soon as I got in the cadets, I was absolutely smitten about the age of 13 or 14. And then did OTC at university, finished that after 3 years, and then joined the TA for my 4th year to do my masters, and then went to Santa. So did the whole thing pretty much back to back to back. So there's quite a lot of military stuff in there, and I was exceptionally lucky in my last 3 years to be at Abbey Wood, that is such an unmilitary place that it was a really great place to resettle from. And I knew that if I was at a regimental duty, I would feel really bad about leaving. So I really wanted to sort of position myself and paint myself into a corner to go and do something different. And every day that has gone past, I've felt less green and more sort of orange, if that makes sense. And one of the opportunities that came up in Arcadis was potentially going into DNS and doing effectively manpower substitutions and helping people get control of their projects. So running teams of QSs, project management, that kind of stuff. And in the early days, I was definitely a no, thank you. I want to keep doing what I'm doing to forge this new direction. Now I'm nearly 4 years in, I'd go and do anything with the military, it would be absolutely fine. But I'd know I'd be an outsider doing it with having had sort of a historical knowledge. So yeah, it was a definite break. It was definitely also for the family as well. So to give that stability, to know we weren't moving all of the time, to know, those little intangibles that you don't get in the military. My sister-in-law is still serving. She's a Royal Navy logistics officer. And, I know the family moves around a lot and they do lots of stuff, and huge kudos to those that still do. It just wasn't the path for us as a family.
Right. Okay. No, thank you for that. A few questions are coming in. Again, feel free to ask them yourself, but I'll just start reading them out. The first one from Christian: does Prince 2 or Lean Six Sigma have its place within the construction PM world? To either of you?
I would say certainly yes. Prince 2 seems to be more popular in the IT sector.
Agreed.
Banking, particularly sort of on the public sector side of things, Department of Work and Pension. So the advice I would give is look at the companies and the industry that you want to settle in, see what qualifications people have in that role before deciding what you spend your money on. Lean Six, Ben, I think you'll probably certainly has its place.
We had a presentation on that just the other day. So one of my colleagues working for Highways England as a consultant had used Lean and Six Sigma to reduce the waste and really improve the systems that we used as consultants. And it was hugely successful and drove down the reporting. So I wouldn't say that in construction it's necessarily a primary qualification, but what you don't really realise, I think Michael touched on it really, really well, is you bring so much experience and lots of qualification compared to lots of people that it'd be another good one to sort of slip into an interview. Oh, and by the way, I can sort of do this. And it just adds another dimension to how you can effectively be sold, because you're trying to make yourself saleable to your employer.
Okay, and a fantastic question from Rich Dobson. Are there the same opportunities for non-engineers, so from an infantry background? So I'll let you ask that question. I've got a sub-question to it.
So I think the difference between Michael and I, so Michael had done proper professional engineering in his time in the Royal Engineers, and absolute kudos to you, that's fantastic. And that wasn't a path that I followed. And actually leaving from the bomb squad, admittedly, I had a master's in construction management, but I had no experience in construction really before I joined. So there are definitely places, and we've got lots of different divisions that need the leadership, that need the kind of resilience and the skills and the team building and the communication, all sorts of stuff. So there's amazing skills and qualities that the military generally brings. And then there's the sort of the specialist side. And if you remember my pillars, the left-hand one was specialist, which is, you know, where you can argue I sit there because I'm a chartered engineer, and Michael absolutely sits there with all of his wealth of experience. But on the more generalist side, there's definitely roles for the non sort of professionally qualified type folk in that respect.
Well, what I would like to add, particularly those who are leaving, you know, after just a few years in the military, or that have very little in the way of construction experience. Yes, absolutely. There's a place for you. You know, I showed the transition programs which are available, but the difference is, you know, people typically leave, you know, early on to get into project management as, you know, graduates from university. They've gone and got themselves a degree, or potentially even a master's degree in, you know, construction management or a related field, and have very little in the way of experience, although some of them might have a couple of years where during their time doing their degree, they've worked in a project management office or something similar. What they lack, that soldiers in particular bring, well, ex-forces as a whole, is the soft skills, that proactive approach. And it's something that was certainly picked upon by my director early on when I joined Lysander, because when I had capacity for more work, I was just pestering him. You know, I need more to do. You know, and it's not something that civilians usually do. You know, that they sit quietly. I'm constantly chasing up stakeholders and things like that, and that's just the way we're built and we're trained. You know, in the military, and it goes a long way in the project world. And you know, they're often say if it's, you know, your face that fits. You know, you get a lot of graduates come and they sit there and they're very quiet, and you know, they don't want to say anything wrong, while you know, ex-military just don't shut up. You know, the communication skills are there, the confidence is there, and when you're leading projects, you know, you are a manager. You're stepping straight into a management role as a project manager. You know, the skills are certainly there, and more and more companies are recognizing that. Absolutely.
Okay, no, that's fantastic to hear. I think a sub point to that, Richard, is and I think the point was raised by Michael very well there, that there's regardless of your experience or your skills or how long you've served, there are various levels of the project management discipline that you're able to enter within. We do speak to some of our candidates who've just got a few years of military experience, and we're looking at maybe assistant PM roles for them. So it is an option for everyone of every background and skill set. So okay, a question, is previous construction or engineering experience essential, or can a more generic project management experience be accepted?
I think I'm sort of probably proof that you don't need lots of experience. And one of the questions I was asked to interview was, how are you going to lead people and projects and programs that's all about construction, and you don't know much about it? And I said, well, I've made an entire career about not knowing lots of things, but I do know about people. I do know about how to take an intent and translate it into tasks. I do know how to do a work-based structure. I do know how to do a schedule. I do know how to manage resource, and I do know how to lead people. And it was brilliant, because I don't think that was what that person expected. He was just flabbergasted and didn't ask me any more questions in the interview. And I've worked with that very senior partner again subsequently, and it, you know, I clearly did all right. So that's my sort of perspective. Clearly, if you're looking to try and sell yourself in the construction market, you know, the advice Michael gave about getting your qualifications and getting all of the CSCS cards and stuff is really important, because it shows that you're committed to it, because you can do it in your own time. You can do that stuff before you turn up. I did a sustainable construction course down in Somerton in Somerset, and you know, it was basically a house DIY course. But the fact that when I turned up on site, my safety boots had plaster on, so I had my lovely suit as a consultant. They do, and when the sort of site manager looked me up and down and said, "What have you come as almost?" And I put on dirty construction boots that were covered in plaster, he actually realised I'd probably been on site before and perhaps knew what I was doing, perhaps suspected I knew more than I actually did. But there's these kind of things you can do to position yourself without lots and lots of experience.
Yeah, get your PPE and roll around in the dirt a little bit. You know? I'll take your message. No, I think Ben is spot on. You know, project management as a whole is managing a process. you know, particularly on the consultancy side, you know, it's all about managing people. If you are site based, then yes, your construction knowledge will need to be a lot more, you know, a lot further developed, really. But like I showed, you've got those sort of transition programs and things like that. Bill Force will hopefully be able to set you up on a lot of work placements, and regardless of what side of the construction industry you're looking at joining, I definitely recommend getting as much site experience as possible just prior to your time leaving the military. One, like I did, it'll help you decide which side of the industry you want to sit on. And two, it'll just deepen your knowledge. It'll get you used to working with contractors and things like that, and just seeing the issues and things that they have on construction sites as well. You know, understanding the procurement challenges and things like that. It'll give you that ingrained knowledge.
Yeah, I was going to just say, but Michael, you said it. I was going to add to Ben. You know, work placements are vital. You know, it gives you that site experience. B, it, like Michael said, it helps you determine which route you want to take. You know, we had a sergeant who after 3 days on site said, thank Christ that wasn't for the rest of my life. You know, and also it gives you that opportunity to showcase those transferable skills that, okay, I haven't been on a construction site, but look what I've got to bring and look what I can do. And equally, we had a Royal Marine who after 3 days on site, our employer said, we've got to get this guy a job, and he's now loving life as a site manager. So it really does work. It's a conduit to employment, and it just helps you determine in your head which direction you're going.
What I find as well is a lot of companies who have ex-military actively recruit ex-military, and you know that's no coincidence. It's really not. I mean, here at Lysander, like Ben, I came in. I think I was the first military guy they had on the books. We've just brought in another one who is starting very soon. We had another guy just recently who, you know, got a couple of interviews but decided to take a job role somewhere else. So it's pushing on, you know. Certainly when they see what you can do, they're after more like you.
Yeah, I think that's it. And the CV and interview focus needs to be on that the lists of skills and courses and personality traits and passions and interests and parallels that are there rather than what's not, which is sometimes the construction piece. Okay, from Peter, he's asked the question around BD, and if it's so within each of the organizations, to deliver work you have to win it. So within some companies it's everybody's responsibility to business develop, but more so the senior leaders, and it's almost every conversation you have is trying to secure or win the next job. So I think Peter's question is BD a specific role and department within the project management world, or does it sit within everybody's job description?
It's an interesting one. I mean, from my side of things as a project manager, you naturally sort of build up relationships with your clients, and they often feed your work. So you know, you may get work like I mentioned. I do a lot of sort of feasibility studies and things like that, and I get a lot of that sort of sent my way, which I then sort of pass up the chain. Ben, you've probably got a very different experience at your level.
Yeah, so I think it's one of the questions I've been asked. It's not something I've done much of. My sort of view around BD is by delivering and delighting your client, you're securing further work. But we have people who are accountable for markets and regions. And when you get to, so the chap I'm meeting in my next meeting, he's accountable for pretty much all of our BD in the Southwest. And he's really, really good at that. And I'm sure he's a great project and program manager, but what he does is win us work. So, you know, it was a pretty big company that we send our people focus on it. We also, however, run academies that train you how to do it. So if you want to pivot your career, which is something the military is really good at, then you can turn up and say on day one, I know nothing, and sort of leave on day 14 as the Jedi and go off and do it, right? And there's lots of companies that do that. And the fact that you're willing to do that is probably something relatively unique to military folk who are used to this kind of pivoting.
I think that's exactly it. And I think the USP that the military guys do bring is that they have these incredible immense networks as well, because you just never know who's on the client side or who's working for the client's consultant. It could be somebody you know, and that's where LinkedIn is invaluable. So yeah, very good question. And another great question from Andrew Harmon. What is the greatest lesson you have learned since you've worked within your companies?
I think for me, and I mentioned, about focusing on those knowledge gaps. I really went away and I researched very strongly things like contracts and things like that. I then had, a contractor who I won't name, win a lot of work with one of our clients, and they had very little understanding of how to manage the contract that they were actually tied into. So by having, by broadening your knowledge, you are, you're secure in success, is what I'll say. So don't think because you have gaps in your knowledge that things are going to fall down, because they're absolutely not, because everybody in industry has gaps in the knowledge. There's not a single person out there who can know everything about the built environment. It's far too ranged. So don't worry, don't be afraid to branch out, learn new skills. The opportunities are always there to develop yourself. So yeah, that would be the advice I give.
Yeah, and I think my point was sort of Bill's and Angela's actually. Really early on, I met somebody for a coffee and said, "Oh, this is an interview," and he laughed and said, "This is an interview." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he said, "I'm going to stop you. I don't want to hear what you can't do. I don't care what you can't do. If you can't juggle that, I don't care. I want to employ you for what you can do." And so, looking at that and building on the points that we've heard, I think that's sell yourself and sell what you can do. But also, as Michael said, you will be more proactive than a lot of other folk in the industry. So the fact that you can't do it today doesn't mean you won't do it tomorrow. So, I just think be hungry, be curious, get stuck in and be diligent, and then you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, and just on the contract piece, because we do get asked this a lot in terms of, I don't know much about contract and I don't know much about commercials, and I'm saying this as a commercial director. Culturally, if you're aligned with your client and you're aligned with your employer, you're not going to go far wrong from the contract. It's there to encourage good behaviours and keep everybody right. So we tend to find that the military guys, by coincidence or not, they seem to be doing quite well in picking up the contract piece, because a lot of it is just common sense and what's right for that project, that client, and for everybody's interests. That's all your contract's trying to capture. Christian's asked a good point, and it's one that I had here. With regards to CVs, I was advised to remove military associations. Would you agree with this, or is it something we should be broadcasting and something that recruiters are actually actively looking for?
I certainly wouldn't remove military associations from your CV, not at all. When people see that people are ex-forces, they naturally stereotype, and a lot of those stereotypes are actually quite positive. They think you're well disciplined, you're punctual, you're, for want of a better phrase, you're a bit of a go-getter. And yeah, I think you should broadcast those. I mean, with regard to post nominals, in the military, you can get your sort of affiliateship, graduateship, and whatnot of the City and Guilds Institute. I can honestly say, Ben, you might have had a different experience. I've never ever seen anyone in civilian street with those post nominals. They are purely ex-military that I come across. So when I'm looking through CVs, when I'm looking through, browsing through LinkedIn and whatnot, and I spot that, I read the posts. I really do, because I know they're ex-military straight away, or at least there's a 99% chance that they're ex-military. And you're far more inclined to, see what they have to say, give them an opportunity, see what it's all about when you see that it's one of your own. So although they probably mean nothing in civilian street, networking wise, it's great, because you're going to be picked up by someone who's like-minded.
So I agree with all that. The thing I would add would be keep military connections in, but make sure the scope and the scale is understandable to a civilian. Because when we say company, squadron, it means something to us, but as a civilian, it doesn't mean anything. And trying to quantify and qualify everything you've done. So, first reporting officer 4 is directly accountable, etc., etc. So I wouldn't take it out, but I'd make sure it's properly readable. Can your gran read it? And if your gran can read it and it makes sense to your gran, and it talks about how good you are and the stuff you can bring, then that makes sense. But I'm an exceptionally proud veteran and would never take anything out of that. But you do temper it, and exactly with Michael's advice, you tailor it for each role. So if you're applying for Greenpeace, maybe they don't want you to be overly military. I don't know. So, yeah.
But what I did on my CV as well, you know, at each sort of job role, yes, I took out the likes of, you know, section commander and things like that, because they don't understand that. You know, at the time when, you know, I was babysitting the 88 recruits, running 2 courses as admin, you know, I was a project manager. I was responsible for, you know, health and safety of site. I was responsible for resourcing. So what I did is I listed those key responsibilities before doing each paragraph of me sort of write-up of what that position was all about. So instantly it shows them what the main aspects of that role was, you know, in a language that they understand.
I think that's it. And just on the qualification piece, we are an antiquated industry. Your experience and your qualifications were the fact that you had built it. But I think what these qualifications are doing now is they're showing a standard, and that's in a bid to modernise industry and to upskill everybody that's in it, because that's what needed, because we've got a skills gap and we've got labour shortages. So yeah, the military guys are certainly ahead of the curve when it comes to the training piece, which is great. A couple of questions that I have. Start with Ben. During your transition, what was your perception of this project management role versus the reality of it?
So I don't know. I think I sort of bungled into stuff, and I did lots of preparation, but where I landed wasn't where I was predicted. I kind of thought I'd be a bit more on site. I sort of realised on day one when I turned up, I didn't really know what consultancy was, and that sounds. But what that shows is the people who were looking for me knew what they were looking for, and they knew what I could bring. So that was really helpful. And you know, from hearing, and I did do a work placement at another consultancy. And at the end of that, I thought, I don't know about this. But it was the culture that made me sort of decide where I'm going to be. So I think, yeah, I think I sort of thought everything would be amazing and mega swept up. And of course, Arcadis is a fantastic company, and we're very good. But there's lots of things that aren't perhaps as swept up as you think they might be. And so you can add real value. You can bring lots of things and improve the organisation, which is what a knowledge organisation is about. And then also, I think we talked a bit about leadership and the skills that we have. You kind of assume that you're going to be a kind of a god of leadership when you arrive, and that therefore everybody else is going to be pretty average. And there's some exceptional leaders who've never had anything to do with the military, and they've not necessarily had that formal training. And there's some really, really impressive people. So don't be surprised if you meet some really, really good sort of role models in that thing that you tout yourself on, but attach yourself to them and use their skills and improve yourself, right? And I think that they're the sort of big surprises I had. None of it's been horrible, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it now still, I suspect.
Okay, Michael, a similar question. During your transition, what was your perception of the construction industry versus the reality of it now?
My perception of the construction industry, it was quite a difficult one. I mean, when I transitioned, everything sort of fell apart, really. You know, we were hit with COVID during my transition. I mean, I look at my own transition, and I think I didn't actually transition out of the military, because when I left, I didn't have any leaving functions or anything like that, because the camp was all shut down. You know, I went in, everyone was in civilian clothing with beards. I handed in my ID card. I picked up a medal that I'd supposed to have received months prior, and then off I was. You know, out the door. All my resettlement courses and everything was cancelled. It was, you know, it was quite a surreal experience, right? I often say I didn't leave the military, I just started a new job. But the construction industry, you know, at that time, it went through a period of transition. As I left, I had 2 job roles, 2 job offers, which were cancelled because companies put on recruitment fees, because there was a lot of unknown at the time. You know, there was a lot of communication with the Construction Leadership Council and government. You know, they very quickly turned around and said, yes, you know, the construction industry can remain open. Companies started recruiting again. You know, I was lucky enough to secure a role in that time anyway. And you know, now looking back, I'm glad it all worked out the way it did, because you know, I love the job I'm in now, and it turned out fantastic. But yeah, there's a huge uplift in the construction world now. There's a lot of recruiters poaching for people. What I'll say is, HS2 is hoovering up a lot of materials in the construction industry, so that's an issue that there's certainly a challenge that contractors are facing, and the better amongst them are, placing orders early and securing materials ahead of even winning work in some cases. So it's a very sort of transient industry as well. People, particularly in consultancy, people move around companies a lot. So there's for people coming out of the military and into the industry now, that's just some of the things to keep an eye on. Procurement materials, programs and timelines.
Okay,
and I hope that answers your question. It does. It's a strange time, isn't it, with COVID and everything.
And just on that then, to both of you, what most excites you about the industry of the future? And by that, and I think it was a comment that was picked up on it, is it around technology? Is it around the complexity of the projects that are going to be built? Is it around carbon net zero? What's tickling you most about what the industry is going to be?
So I think we have a massive opportunity as an industry in terms of becoming more digital, more automated, using more technology, and the bricks and mortar cost of a building compared to the M&E fitting, the balance is changing in that, a smart building is going to cost more to build, have more mechanical electrical components, but cost less to run. And that is a significant change to a business that has historically based itself around blokes with shovels, right? Let's be honest. That isn't the future. And I'm a STEM ambassador. I delight in speaking to particularly young ladies at STEM functions, because I've got 2 daughters, to say the construction industry isn't what you think. There are consultancy roles, there are site roles. Things are becoming more digital, things are becoming more automated. So driving that and working in an ecosystem where, I've worked on projects with PwC, with KPMG, so with the big 4 that drive the standard of consultancy. So the fact that we happen to offer built environment solutions, built asset solutions, the client still wants the same level of standard. So we need to raise our game. And that's a huge opportunity, because we are all used to working at a really high standard, having come from the military. So bringing that forward into construction, bringing that agility, that use of technology, to me is hugely exciting.
And Michael?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the work I've done this year, I mean, I just showed everyone in my presentation there one of the projects I'm working on, which is a big electric vehicle scheme. There's actually a large number of them going across Amazon right now. I've done 6 feasibility studies on basically sustainable energy across Amazon's estate. So they are looking at moving away from the use of like gas and being sort of all electric. Combining that with all PV systems and stuff like that. So Ben's hit the nail on the head there when he's saying the M&E side of it, the cost wise, and smart buildings, it's really leaning that way at the moment. Same on the ecology side of things. I've had a sort of 30-minute phone call, Teams call recently, about the positioning of yard lighting, and how that affects the nearby bat habitat. So the protection of sort of habitats and things like that is again something a lot of the local authorities are pushing towards. So the whole sustainability and the effect on the environment is far more at the forefront these days, and it's great to see, to be honest.
Yeah, no, quite right. It's certainly diverse, isn't it? So good morning to Mr. McAllister. So Ian has asked if military qualifications such as ILM and CMI are recognised.
Yeah, I think Michael covered it fantastically. They absolutely are. What they say more than just the subject they're in, though, is if you map them over time, it demonstrates a commitment to continual learning. So it shows that growth mindset and shows you may be coming not from an environment of lots and lots of experience, but you'll want to upskill on your way. So that's really important. Sorry for cutting over you, Mike. Sorry.
No problem. But something I showed on my CV was, I put dates against when I achieved those qualifications. I stuck to the CMI route as opposed to ILM. ILM typically offer, a higher level, but whether it's sort of lesser, they may offer a sort of certificate over a full diploma that CMI offer at the lower level. But CMI are a chartered organisation, so I always push people towards them. because being chartered in management is certainly something that people in Civilian Street recognise. I left with that when I left the army as a chartered manager. And again, yeah, post-nominal straight at the top of your degree. It shows that you have that ability to manage people, which is 95% of the job as a project manager. Absolutely.
And just on the CV there then, sorry, just on the CV point there, Michael, you did mention the benefit of tweaking a CV. Would you suggest in every instance the CV is aligned with that employer or with that role?
Absolutely. I remember sending Caroline actually two CVs, and she came back to me and said, "What's the difference?" And the difference was I was looking at house building at the time. This is before I decided to go down the consultancy route. She's nodding and smiling now. She might remember. So when I was displaying the experience I had, I put house building at the top of the list for that role. So it was a tiny little amendment to a CV, but it was the first thing I wanted them to see. That I had that experience.
Made the world a difference. And Ben, you agree?
Yeah, I think it demonstrates to an employer that you've read what it is they're offering, and that you've got, and I talked a lot about values-based culture. If you get into an employer's website, it talks also about values, and you don't mention values in your CV, you're going to kind of be sifted out. And so I think it's really important. The one thing I would share actually is that a former colleague of mine, Mark Hewitt, who's at Capgemini, he did an amazing thing on LinkedIn. He did like a one-page pictorial CV on PowerPoint, and that grabbed so much interest that you sort of put a timeline across the top. And I'm happy to share mine afterwards with you guys so you can share it amongst the body. But that generated so much interest that maybe advertising yourself, in that way, you'll get recruiters coming to you and having a look. And so, think about novel ways that aren't really kooky and really sort of Chad to get experience. And if you send a generic CV, you'll get a generic no, I suspect.
Well, one of the big no's for me when I receive CVs, and you get this a lot from ex-military, because during your time in the forces, you get a vast array of experience. Now, if I get sent a CV, for a project manager, and at the top it's got logistic manager, facility manager, project manager, well, that project manager's third on the list there. You can see instantly it's a generic CV. Just tailor it to the requirement.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, listen, I have 10,000 more questions. I could keep going, but I appreciate that everybody's busy. I cannot thank you enough. I have absolutely loved this session this morning. So thank you to both of you, incredible speakers. The questions from the audience were great. So thank you for that. And I will hand over to Caroline to close. And you've got some news as well, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Angela. I just reiterate that was fantastic and really great questions. Sometimes the chat box can be a little bit silent, so it was great to see those questions flooding in. And Michael, we had you in lightness for a minute there, but you've gone back dark. But no, we really do appreciate your support. And just to say to everyone online now and those checking in later, we are here to support you into the sector, but not just professionally, but also personally. Please, you're not alone. Reach out, get in touch. I love to chat. I love to listen. So does Angela. We are here for you. It's not the easiest time transitioning, whatever rank you are. It's not rank specific, so please do just get in touch. Our next virtual career chat is next Thursday, the 17th. It will be our postponed HS2 JV Align, part of the HS2 series, where we'll hear from different areas of expertise and what part they play in HS2. So another fantastic event not to be missed. But more importantly, I am doing a shout out, please don't leave me on my own, to any keen walkers out there. We are doing our own charity walk in support of Armed Forces Day on Saturday, the 26th of June. I'll be leading a team, hopefully a team, on a 15-mile walk across country through 3 counties. We start off at Salisbury, Wiltshire. We go through Hampshire and end up in Dorset, Salisbury, where we'll go to the pub for some well-earned glasses of something cold or whatever you like. Or of course you can lead your own walk, like our very own Angela here, who will be doing a beach crawl round St Andrews, ice cream in hand and toddler in tow. So I'm not sure which is my preference here. And just to say that all are welcome, friends, family, partners, dogs, the more the merrier. So email us at info@billforce.org.uk to register or for further information. And as I said, come and join me. It's a long walk without great company, and it'll be great to just chat. It's a long time to chat as well. So anyway, that's another wrap for us. I think that, as Anja said, our 27th, weather's looking a little bit ominous, but it is going to be sunny this weekend. So enjoy, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, guys.